Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. Gravity ceased to exist the moment the glossy black and white photograph slipped from my trembling fingers and hit the pristine marble floor of the executive office. Time didn't just slow down, it shattered. The low hum of the air conditioning, usually a comforting white noise in the sterile silence of the 45th floor, sounded like a roaring jet engine in my ears. I watched, paralyzed, as the paper fluttered, pirouetted in the air, and landed face up between us. It was a damning piece of evidence, a monochromatic nebula revealing the curve of a spine, the tiny, curled fist of an existence that shouldn't be. I lunged for it, my breath hitching in a desperate sob, but a hand clad in Italian silk and smelling of crushed cedar and cold rain moved faster. Cashin Thorne, CEO of Thorne Heavy Industries and the most feared alpha in the chaotic sprawl of Neo-Soul, did not snatch the paper. He picked it up with the terrifying, deliberate grace of a predator that knows its prey has nowhere left to run. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. I stood there, my hands hovering uselessly over my stomach, a stomach that I had bound tight with compression bands and hidden beneath oversized blazers for 21 agonizing weeks. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, frantic and bruising. Cashin inspected the image. His eyes, the color of tempered steel, scanned the medical data printed in the corner. I saw the exact moment the information registered. His pupils dilated, swallowing the iris, and the temperature in the room seemed to plummet 10 degrees. Julian. His voice was a low rumble, vibrating through the floorboards, through the soles of my shoes, and straight into my marrow. He didn't look up from the image. Care to explain why this medical scan bears your name? He took a step forward. I took a stumbling step back, hitting the edge of his mahogany desk. And why? He continued, finally lifting his gaze to pin me in place with a look that was equal parts fury and a terrifying, dawning hunger. It says 21 weeks. To understand the terror of that moment, you have to understand Cashin Thorne. In the business world, they called him the Iron Wolf. He was ruthless, efficient, and devoid of unnecessary emotion. As his executive assistant for the past 3 years, I, Julian Vane, had been the only one who could keep pace with him. I anticipated his needs before he voiced them, managed his schedule with military precision, and ensured his empire ran without a hitch. I was invisible, essential, and entirely professional. Except for one night in Tokyo. 5 months ago, a merger negotiation had run late. A typhoon had grounded all flights, trapping us in the sensory overload of the distinct Japanese metropolis. We had retreated to the hotel suite to wait out the storm. I shouldn't have been there. My suppressants were due, but in the chaos of the trip, I had miscalculated the dosage. It hit me like a fever spike, the heat. It wasn't just biology. It was a biological imperative crashing into the wall of Cashin's latent, powerful pheromones. He had tried to leave. He had tried to be the honorable boss. But the storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside that room. When I touched his arm, begging him to help me, the professional boundary didn't just blur, it incinerated. We never spoke of it. The next morning, Cashin was back to being the Iron Wolf, perhaps even colder than before. He treated the night as a physiological anomaly, a glitch in the system to be rectified with a generous bonus and a tacit agreement of silence. I swallowed my pride, buried the hurt, and went back to work. I thought I could move on. I thought I could forget the way he had looked at me with such raw possession, the way his voice had broken when he said my name. Then came the morning sickness. Then came the realization. I should have resigned immediately. But I couldn't. My family's debt was substantial, and the salary at Thorne Industries was the only thing keeping my younger sister in university. So, I made a dangerous choice. I bought black market scent blockers, illegal, high-grade chemicals used by corporate spies to mask their biology entirely. They were expensive, and they came with a list of side effects longer than my arm, including fatigue and dizziness. But they worked. They masked the scent of the milk and honey of a pregnancy, replacing it with the neutral, sterile scent of a beta. I became a ghost in my own body, hiding the growing life inside me while serving the man who had put it there. Julian, Cashin repeated, stepping into my personal space. The scent of his distress, Burnt wood and ozone cracked through my blockers, making my knees weak. Answer me. It's a mistake, I whispered, the lie tasting like ash. It's my sister's. I was holding it for her. Cashin tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. He didn't believe me. He reached out, his large hand hovering over my abdomen. I flinched, instinctively wrapping my arms around myself to protect the bump hidden beneath the layers of fabric and compression. That reaction sealed my fate. You are wearing a compression binder, he stated, not asking. His voice dropped to a terrifying whisper. You are binding my child? I'm resigning. I blurted out, panic rising in my throat. I have the letter on my desk. I was going to leave today. You won't have to deal with this. I'll disappear. You'll never see us again. The air in the room shifted instantly. If Cashin was angry before, he was now something else entirely. The predatory aura flared so violently that the glass of water on his desk rattled. Leave. He laughed, a dark, humorless sound. He closed the distance, trapping me against the desk. His hands slammed onto the mahogany on either side of my hips, caging me in. You think you can walk out of here with my air in your belly? You think I would let you vanish? You don't want this. I cried out, tears finally spilling over. You made it clear in Tokyo. It was a mistake. A glitch. You hate complications, Cashin. This. I gestured frantically between us. This is the ultimate complication. Cashin's expression fractured. For a split second, the Iron Wolf mask slipped, revealing a depth of pain I hadn't expected. Is that what you think? He murmured. He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. The contact sent a shockwave through me. That I saw that night as a mistake? You never spoke to me about it. I accused, my voice trembling. You acted like I was a spreadsheet error. Because I was terrified, Julian, he confessed, the admission shocking me into silence. I have enemies. Dangerous ones. If they knew you meant something to me. If they knew about this. He glanced down at my stomach, his gaze softening into something agonizingly tender. I stayed away to protect you. And instead, you've been poisoning yourself with blockers and binding yourself in secret. He pulled back, his eyes hardening with resolve. He reached for the intercom on his desk. Cancel my meetings, he barked into the device. Cancel everything for the next week. And call security. No one enters this floor. What are you doing? I asked, gripping the edge of the desk. I am correcting my mistake, Cashin said, straightening his tie, the ruthless so returning. But this time, the ruthlessness was directed outward, not at me. You are coming with me. Where? Home, he said, the words sounding like a verdict. And Julian, if you ever try to hide something from me again, I will lock you in my bedroom and throw away the key. The penthouse was less of a home and more of a fortress in the sky. It was all glass, chrome, and panoramic views of the city ring. I had been here before to drop off documents, but I had never been past the foyer. Now, I was a prisoner in the master suite. Cashin had been true to his word. He had practically carried me out of the building, shielding me from the prying eyes of the staff with his broad coat. Now, I sat on the edge of a bed that cost more than my parents' house, watching as Cashin paced the room, speaking in rapid-fire French into his phone. He was ordering prenatal vitamins, a dietary overhaul, and a private obstetrician. He ended the call and tossed the phone onto a velvet armchair. He began to undo his cufflinks, his eyes never leaving me. Take it off, he commanded softly. I froze. What? The binder, he said, walking toward me. Take it off. Now. It's restricting blood flow. It's dangerous for the baby. My hands shook as I reached for the hem of my shirt. Shame burned my cheeks. I had spent 5 months trying to be invisible, trying to be flat, trying to be the perfect employee. Revealing the swell of my stomach felt like stripping away my armor. I lifted the shirt and undid the heavy Velcro of the compression band. As the fabric loosened, I gasped, the pressure releasing. My stomach, round and firm, finally breathed. Cashin sank to his knees in front of me. The mighty CEO, the Iron Wolf, kneeling on the carpet between my legs. He reached out, his large, warm hands hesitating for a fraction of a second before cupping the swell. A jolt of electricity arced between us. The baby kicked, a strong, distinct thud against his palm. Cashin's breath hitched. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with wonder, the steel completely melted away. He's strong. I corrected automatically, then bit my lip. She, Cashin repeated, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. He leaned forward and pressed a kiss to the fabric of my shirt, right over my navel. My daughter. The tenderness was almost too much to bear. I wanted to lean into it, to let him take care of me. But the fear was still there. Cashin, the board. The shareholders. A scandal like this. Let them burn, he growled against my stomach. I built this empire. I can burn it down and build another one. But I cannot build another you. He stood up and sat beside me, pulling me into his arms. For the first time in 5 months, I let myself relax. But the peace was fragile. Why did you use the blockers, Julian? He asked quietly, his hand rubbing circles on my back. High-grade military suppressants. Where did you even get them? I have a contact, I murmured, sleep tugging at my eyelids. I didn't want you to smell me. I didn't want to trap you. You didn't trap me, he said, his voice tightening. But those blockers, they mess with your pheromone regulation. If you stop them cold turkey, your body is going to crash. We need to wean you off. He was right. But we didn't have time. 2 days later, the crash happened. It wasn't just withdrawal, it was a biological revolt. My body, confused by the sudden absence of the chemical mask, went into a fever state. I was burning up, delirious, tossing and turning in the massive bed. Cashin never left my side. He bathed my forehead with cool cloths, force-fed me broth, and held me when the tremors became violent. He abandoned the company, leaving his VP in charge, ignoring the frantic calls about stock prices dropping due to his absence. In my delirium, I confessed things I had kept hidden. I loved you, I mumbled, clutching his hand. I loved you before Tokyo. That's why it hurt. I know, he whispered, brushing sweaty hair off my forehead. I was a coward, Julian. I thought I was protecting us by staying cold. I see now that I nearly destroyed the only thing that matters. By the third night, the fever broke. I woke up weak, but clear-headed. The room was dim, lit only by the city lights outside. Cashin was asleep in the chair next to the bed, his head resting on the mattress near my hand. He looked exhausted, stubble darkening his jaw, his shirt wrinkled. I reached out and touched his hair. He woke instantly, his hand snapping out to grab my wrist, a reflex. When he realized it was me, he exhaled, his shoulders slumping. You're back, he rasped. I think so, I whispered. Good, he said, standing up and stretching. Because we have a problem. What? My rival, Victor Krell, Cashin said, his face hardening. He found out. My blood ran cold. Krell was a shark. If Cashin was a wolf, Krell was a hyena, opportunistic and cruel. How? The pharmacy contact you used for the blockers, Cashin explained grimly. Krell bought him out months ago. He's been tracking the purchases. He knows you're pregnant. He knows it's mine. And he knows I've been absent for 3 days. He's going to use it against you, I realized. Blackmail. He's demanded a meeting, Cashin said. Tonight. At the shipping yards. If I don't go, he releases the medical records to the press. He'll spin it that I coerced a subordinate. It would ruin the company's reputation, but more importantly, it would put a target on your back for every kidnapper in the city. You can't go, I said, trying to sit up. It's a trap. I have to, Cashin said, checking the gun holstered beneath his jacket, a sight that jarred me. I had never seen him armed. I'm going to end this, Julian. Tonight. Take me with you, I pleaded. Absolutely not. I can sense him, I argued, desperate. The Omega instinct. It's heightened. I can smell aggression, lies. If Krell has a sniper, or a backup team, I'll sense the pheromones before you do. You're an alpha. Your senses are tuned to challenge. Mine are tuned to danger. Cashin stared at me. He looked at my belly, then at my eyes. He saw the resolve there. He knew I was right. In the world of high-stakes corporate warfare, an Omega's intuition was often the difference between life and death. You stay in the car, he ordered. Bulletproof glass. Engine running. If I give the signal, you drive. You don't look back. The shipping yards were a maze of rusted metal and shadows. The rain had started again, turning the concrete slick. Cashin parked the black SUV in the shadow of a crane. Stay, he commanded, kissing me hard on the mouth, a kiss that tasted like goodbye. I watched from the car as he walked into the open space under the floodlights. Victor Krell was there, flanked by 3 large men. Even from this distance, through the rain-streaked glass, I could see Krell's smug grin. They spoke. I couldn't hear the words, but the body language was clear. Krell was gloating. Cashin was standing his ground, a statue of ice. Then, the scent hit me. It seeped through the car's filtration system, faint but undeniable. Not from Krell. From the shipping container directly above Cashin. Asterisk gun oil. Beta sweat. Adrenaline. Asterisk. It was a sniper. But not just a sniper. A chemically masked assassin, similar to how I had masked myself. But the stress of the last few days had uncorked my senses. I could smell the tiny discrepancy in the chemical cloak. Cashin was looking at Krell. He didn't see the shadow moving above him. I didn't think. I reacted. I scrambled into the driver's seat and slammed my hand on the horn. The blaring sound shattered the standoff. Cashin flinched, glancing back. In that split second, the muzzle flash sparked from the container above. Because Cashin had turned, the bullet meant for his heart grazed his shoulder instead. Drive, I screamed, though he couldn't hear me. But Cashin didn't run. The injury seemed to flip a switch in him. The iron wolf vanished. The beast emerged. He drew his weapon with blinding speed, firing upward. A body tumbled from the top of the container, hitting the wet pavement with a sickening thud. Krell's men drew their weapons, but Cashin was already moving. He used the cover of the falling rain and the confusion I had caused. He didn't retreat to the car. He advanced. I watched, terrified and awestruck, as the father of my child dismantled Krell's security detail with brutal, efficient violence. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution of threats. Within 30 seconds, Krell was on his knees, and Cashin had his gun pressed to the man's forehead. I couldn't stay in the car. I opened the door and stumbled out into the rain. Cashin. He froze. He looked back at me, his eyes glowing gold in the dark, his chest heaving. Blood, his and theirs, stained his white shirt. I told you to stay in the car, he roared, though his voice shook. He was above you. I shouted back, clutching my stomach as I walked toward him. I smelled him. Cashin looked down at Krell, who was trembling now, realizing he had underestimated not just the alpha, but the bond between us. You threatened my family, Cashin said to Krell, his voice devoid of humanity. You tried to take my future. It was just business. Krell squealed. This, Cashin said, looking at me standing in the rain, defiant and carrying his legacy, is personal. He didn't kill him. Death was too easy. Cashin pistol-whipped Krell, knocking him unconscious. Let him live to tell the others, Cashin snarled to the wet pavement. Let them know what happens when they look at what is mine. He rushed to me, ignoring his bleeding shoulder. He scooped me up into his arms, burying his face in my neck, inhaling deeply. You foolish, brave idiot, he muttered, his body shaking against mine. You saved me. We saved you, I corrected, placing his bloodied hand over our daughter. The scandal never broke. Krell woke up in a hospital with a shattered jaw and a decimated stock portfolio. Cashin's lawyers had acquired a controlling interest in Krell's company before the sun came up. 3 months later, the nursery was finished. It was ridiculous. Gold accents, hand-painted murals, and enough stuffed animals to populate a zoo. I sat in the rocking chair, heavily pregnant now, watching Cashin struggle to assemble a high-tech crib. The instructions were discarded on the floor. You run a multinational conglomerate, I teased, sipping herbal tea. But you can't use an Allen wrench. Cashin glared at me playfully, wiping sweat from his brow. This engineer should be fired. It defies the laws of physics. He abandoned the tool and walked over to me. He knelt, just as he had that first day in the penthouse. The fear was gone now. The secrets were gone. How are my girls? He asked, resting his chin on my knee. Impatient, I said. Like their father. Cashin kissed my hand, his thumb tracing the gold band that now sat on my ring finger. We hadn't done a big wedding, just a private ceremony in the penthouse garden. I never told you, he said softly, his expression turning serious. When I saw that ultrasound, when I saw the date, I was terrified, but I was also relieved. Relieved? Because it meant you were still connected to me, he admitted. Even when I was pushing you away, you were carrying a part of me. It meant I hadn't lost you completely. I ran my fingers through his hair. You never lost me, Cashin. You just had to find me. He stood up and leaned over, capturing my lips in a slow, deep kiss that tasted of promise and peace. The corporate world was still a battlefield outside our windows, full of wolves and sharks. But inside these walls, the iron wolf had been tamed, not by force, but by the quiet strength of the family he had almost thrown away. And that is how the viper tamed the wolf. If you enjoyed seeing Cashin lose his composure for the sake of love, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a partner who treated you coldly to protect you? Or is honesty always worth the risk? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then,